Welcome back to another tutorial on Ambience 2021. So today we'll be covering the ETL module. Right, so first we'll read from an API, specifically a HTTP endpoint, followed by simple ETL transformation and calculations. Next, we will do some provisioning of APIs so that you can actually share this transformed data with your peers, for example. And lastly, we'll cover the use of API tokens in order to provide access to these APIs. The tutorial will be a continuation of the previous, so do check that out if you haven't already. Just to take note, all links are provided in the description below. So we'll first start off by going to data.gov.sg, and over there we'll navigate to the developers tab. Okay, once in there, under real-time APIs, we are going to take a look at this API called car park availability. So from the previous page, you could actually explore and try out the other real-time APIs if you please. So in order to use this, just click try it out, press execute, and you will be provided a request URL as shown below. So simply copy this API, okay, and we can explore this API by putting this URL inside the URL bar. Okay, and we'll notice that the data is coming in as a JSON, and if you click raw data, you can actually see the contents of the API. So what we want to do is we want to be able to read these into Ambience, and also one thing to note is that the API refreshes every minute. Okay, so we will be able to set it up in order to retrieve this in some sort of real-time configuration. Okay, so first navigate to your ETL module, right, and then we'll press add, and in the name let's just call it car park API. So you'll see that you have a 4 distinct columns, right? We have chains, steps, outputs, and results. So a chain is what contains a list of steps. Okay, and every time you run this chain or list of steps, they actually create a record in the output. Now if you click the output, you will be able to see them in the results. So what we'll do is we'll first create the chain. Okay, so we'll call it A read API. So we'll start off with a prefix A in order to sort your chains accordingly. So the first thing we want to do is, since we have the URL already, we will want to put in a URL reader. Okay, so from here we will just paste the URL retrieved previously over here. Then we will press run to step, and you will see that some bytes are returned. So this indicates that we are able to successfully read the API with no issues going through the firewall, etc. Okay, so what we want to do next is, since we know it's a JSON record, we want to put in a JSON reader. Okay, so just add in a step called JSON reader. There's nothing to fill in over here, and if you press run to step now, okay, you'll see your first field over here called items, and you'll notice that it's an array. Right, so an array is, in layman's speak, a table within a table, right? So you can expand this array by clicking on the plus sign, right? And you'll see that within items there's another table in there with the column, timestamp, and car park data, which is then another array, right? So we can explore this. So just click on the plus sign to expand this. Okay, you'll notice that there's 1953 of this in the array, and then each of those is a car park number, the update date time, and also the car park info. Right, so we want to get to the bottom of the array, which is at car park info, right, because it tells us the important information, the real-time aspect, which is, at this given time, what is the number of lots available, right, compared to the total lots. So total lots slightly wouldn't change very often, but lots available changes as the vehicles exit and enters the car parks. Okay, so we want to get over here. So what we need to do is we need to add in 2 steps to perform this. So first one will be an array unwind, right, because we are unwinding the array. Okay, so in here you don't have to type any code. What we are doing is we are specifying the field that the array is in. So if you look over here, array 1 is under the field called items, as you can see over here. So we'll just need to follow suit. Okay, and then press save. Now if we run everything, okay, you'll see that now items has been, in a way, what we do when we actually press the expand sign, right, gets opened up. But this isn't the structure that we want it to be in yet. Okay, what we want to do is we want to push up timestamp and car park data to the highest level, because logically this items doesn't exist on its own, right? Items only serve to contain these 2 fields. So we'll add in another step called flatten subdocument. Okay, and likewise we are flattening the same field, which is items. Okay, so when we run this step now, you will notice that items has now disappeared, right? Instead, what we have is timestamp and car park data, right? So they have been pushed to the highest level. So we're gonna go all the way to the bottom, which is car park info, right? So what we want to do is we want to bring this car park info and its contents to the highest level. So likewise, I will just repeat the 2 previous steps. So just select array unwind, hold Control or Command if you're on Mac. Okay, click flatten subdocument, and then in this more actions button, we want to click copy. Once you've clicked that, click onto flatten subdocument and then press paste. You now have duplicated your steps. So for the next step, we want to change from items to car park data, because car park data is the one with the array. Okay, so likewise over here, as we have seen, so flatten subdocument and array unwind will be for car park underscore data. Now if you run this step, now you have 1953 records, because the array had the same amount. Okay, so we are almost there. Okay, let's do another paste, right, from our previous copy, and you'll see, yeah, we pasted in array unwind and flatten subdocument again. Right, so let's add in car park info. Okay, press next, add in car park info. Now we press save. Okay, and you will notice that it is completely unwound, right? Our lots available and total lots are now at the highest level. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to perhaps do some calculations, right? So if you were to be tasked to find lots used, right? So how many lots are in use currently? We will just have to do some simple operations, which is to take lots available, subtracting from total lots. So over here, if you're on the new version of Ambience, all strings will appear in black, whereas for numbers, dates, and then things other than string, they will have a different color to denote. So because we know, most JSONs are encapsulated in a string, right, as an escape, we'll need to change the field type, because you can't do a mathematical operation on a string. So we just need to search for this step called change field type. Okay, and press the plus sign, Now in the convert, we'll convert total lots to integer 32 and lots available to integer 32. Now you have to watch out, all these are case sensitive and they do not ignore the spaces. So if you have any space before or after the field, it will not be valid. Okay, so we will change both of these two fields, lots available and total lots. Okay, so if we run it now, you will note that if you are in the new version, your total lots and lots available are now displayed in a blue font color. Now, not to worry if you don't see this blue font color if you're on the older version. So what we want to do next is to do a subtract. Okay, so over here you'll see a integer subtract and integer subtract field. What integer subtract does is it allows you to take a field minus a hard-coded value. So this one in particular isn't too useful in this scenario. For this case is we want to do a subtract field, so it's taking two fields and then subtracting them, you know, instead of integer subtract, which allows you to subtract a hard-coded value, a fixed hard-coded value such as 30, 20 and so on. Okay, so you'll see we have field 1, field 2 and an output. So at any point if you're unsure, you can click the information button at the top right. Okay, so we will have some information that you can actually read. Okay, so first one we want to do is we want to take total lots, okay, minus lots available, and then one is the resulting output. So the resulting output, you have to give it a name so that it has a place to be stored. We'll call it lots used. So press save, run the integer subtract field, okay, and you will see that the lots used has now been derived. So for example, if your total lots is 105, you have 0 available, logically means that 105 lots are used. Okay, so this is a simple calculation. Obviously you can do things like you know, percentage use, right? But just take note, percentage use are quite vulnerable to having errors if your API has an issue, like in this case. So in this API, there are times when the total lots are actually 0. So if you want to try and find lots used, and then you take, you know, lots used divided by total lots, you'll be ending up with a divide by 0. So how do we handle that? What we want to do is we want to search for 0. So we'll use equal value this time. Okay, so we'll be searching on the field called total lots, okay, and in here we'll put 0, right? Take note that it is just a 0 and not a double quote 0, because double quote 0 will actually mean that it's a string, right? So we want to look for the number 0 and not the string 0. So we'll just have the result field in this result, okay, and then once you press run to step, you'll see most of them return false, right, because they do not match the 0. Now I'm going to try and see if I can quickly search for one result which is true. Okay, and you'll notice, yeah, it is quite difficult to do that, right? So one quick way to identify that is to use the boolean, because the result that is returned to us is actually a boolean of true or false. So just search for boolean, okay, and here you'll see boolean retain, boolean discard. So you'll notice in the help, the step help, it says for boolean discard each incoming record if a boolean field value is true. Right, so this allows you to discard all those that are 0. But for the purpose of demonstration, I want to show you those records that actually contain a 0. So we'll use boolean retain, right, just for a quick example. So boolean retain based on the field result. So it's looking for the boolean in this field over here. Okay, if I run retain, okay, you'll see that there are actually 20 records with total lots of 0. Okay, now because this is a data problem and we can't readily fix it, right, we will have to discard this 20. So let's delete this boolean retain, and we want to run the opposite instead. So deleting away, or rather removing from our records all those with total lot 0. Okay, and then you'll notice now we have 2219 records compared to the previous where we had 2239 because we discarded the 20. So anyway, now you will be able to do your divide. So let's take a float divide because we want to keep the decimal places. Okay, so float divide field. Right, so float divide field. Okay, so input, or rather field 1, okay, will be our lots used, right, divided by total lots. Okay, this will give us lots used %. Now press save, and then when we run this step, okay, you will note that if your lots used is, you got 100% lots used, then you'll show it to you as 1.00. So this is of course in decimal places, right? So now you have derived this. What if you want to actually provide this to another application, right? You will have to export it as a CSV or Excel, right? But those are very batch based, right? If you want to update your data, then you can export this out into a CSV or an Excel, so your data won't be so-called live, right? And for data such as this where every minute it refreshes, you will want to keep the consistency in terms of refresh interval. So what we can do is we can add in a HTTP endpoint over here. Okay, and the HTTP endpoint will have many options, but for today we will just go with this JSON endpoint. So if you click open link on JSON endpoint, you will be able to see that our data is received, right, but in a very nice format, right, compared to the previous where you see there's a lot of this arrays that actually contain all your critical info. And of course you will see your calculated fields, right? You see all this. If you notice, there's this result equals false. It was one of the supportive steps we needed in order to do the boolean discard, right? If you want to remove this, that's fine. We can just add in a step above, right, called discard field. Okay, and here we just discard result. Okay, so if we go back to the endpoint, just press refresh. Okay, now you'll see that the result is no longer there because it has been discarded. Okay, so this is only available to you, this endpoint is only available to you while you are logged into the browser session. Right, so if you were to Control C this URL and then you open your browser in incognito, okay, you will note that pasting it into an incognito window where you are not logged in at all will tell you that authentication is possible but has failed. The reason for this is because there is a built-in security mechanism, right? So to overcome this, right, what we need to do is to configure a token. So if you're not familiar with tokens, basically an API is like a doorway, right? But we usually want to keep the door locked so that unauthorized people do not enter, right? So we provide an API token. An API token is analogous to your key, right? So only if you have a key or an API token, then we let you come in through the door. Okay, so we're going to set that up. So go to your service chooser and select API token under administrators. Okay, so here you can actually create an API token. Okay, we'll create just one based on our user admin, but of course this is just for demonstration purposes. For actual production purposes, you will probably want to lock it down further, right? Because the admin account is a lot more powerful. So we'll just press save. Okay, expires, you can leave it as never or choose a date that you want to. Okay, so you have a API token over here. Okay, what we want to do next is to go back to your incognito browser. Okay, and at the end of this, right, we want to put a question mark, elx.token equals, then you paste your own token. Do not use my token because the token is randomly generated. Using mine wouldn't work for you. Okay, so now you see that we are able to access the API because we have provided it with the token. So as a continuation, first let us download the reference table. So if you recall, previously in the ETL that we've walked through, right, we do not have much information, right? All we have is a car park number as a key, right? So this allows the API to be much smaller and lighter, right? But it doesn't give us the car park name or address, right? So you know, just using car park number in your dashboard, you wouldn't get much information because, you know, who would know what HLM means, right? Where is HLM in Singapore? Right, so what we want to do is we want to use a reference table. Okay, so hop back over to data.gov, and if you were in the same link as before, scrolling down, right, under about this data set, you will see detailed car park information can be found at this link. So we click on this link and simply download their CSV file. Okay, just press save. Okay, and as before, we will want to import this. So hop over to your downloads, extract this. Okay, and then we will want to drop the CSV file into your import module. Okay, press upload. Okay, now because we have covered this in tutorial 1, I will be going through this very quickly without any explanation. Okay, now I've imported the CSV file. I'll go back to the ETL module. So once you've imported the HDB car park information file, what we want to do now is to go ahead and delete the endpoint we've created previously, because while ETL runs the steps in the chain sequentially, any step with a suffix of endpoint will always be run last, regardless of the position they are in. So I've deleted the endpoint now, and I want to create a new chain called HDB car park info. Okay, and over here we will want to read the file that we have just imported. Okay, so let's add in the MongoDB definition and MongoDB reader. Okay, so definition allows you to pick and choose which collection to read from. Okay, so we want to pick this HDB car park information. Okay, and then press save. Okay, so now if you run all the steps, you'll be able to see the details of each of the car park, and of course notably we have the X and Y coordinate, which is in SVY21, and of course the key that we will need to join on later, called car_park_number. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the conversion. So let's look for SVY21 to lat long. Okay, and we just need to define the northing field, easting field. So this northing easting is a terminology for SV21. So let's put in northing as Y coord and X coord over here. Then latitude and longitude is the output, so let's call it lat. long. Okay, so we press save. Now if we run that step, we will be able to see that let long has been generated. Okay, in order to reference this in the GIS Explorer, we also need to create a coordinate system. Okay, so this one ties in with MongoDB. So just add in a GeoJSON point step. Okay, and over here we just need to define let and long. Okay, output we'll leave it as default. Now if we run the step, you'll see that let long has disappeared because it has been collected into an array of coordinates. Okay, so we are done with this part now. So let's create a chain called cjoin chains. Okay, here we will have a chain call to call the contents of a read API, right? So that we don't actually have to duplicate all the steps in here. We can just call it as a chain on its own, right? This way it is fully reusable, and you'll notice that it is a one-to-one copy because we're just calling the contents of a read API like a function. Okay, so the next step we want to do is to add a join, right? For simplicity's sake, we'll use an inner join because inner join would then only retain those records which have a matching key, right? So the right chain we'll call HDB carpark info, left field will be carpark underscore number, while right field will be car underscore park underscore no. Okay, and on the right merge we can go ahead and add in all the fields that we want to add one by one, or alternatively, if you are feeling a bit lazy, you can always use a star. So star will merge everything in. Okay, so I'll run this to the inner join step to see whether it works. Okay, so yes, it works according to plan, right? You see our first chain, which gives us lots available, lots used, while the second chain which we have joined on, right, gives us address, the coordinates, and of course the car park details. Now if you look at the lots used percentage or even lots used, right, you see that they have a very wide range of available numbers to choose from. So if you ever want to classify them, right, you can't just say, okay, group by lots used or group by lots used percent, right? You actually need to shrink the numbers down by putting a bin on them, right? So how we can do that is we can add a number describe. Okay, so number describe allows you to categorize them. So for example, you have lots used, or okay, let's say lots available. Okay, so less than 10 will be one control, right, one test. Okay, so next one, it can be less than 21. So this means it's 10 to 21 lots available, right? Or you can add even more. So less than 50. So 21 to 50 lots. Okay, and then of course, lastly, we can have more than or equals to 50. Okay, so output as lots available description. Okay, so if you press save now and then you run to this number describe, you will have it all populated as so. So this allows you to actually use this as a group because we only have 4 available options over here. So later on, if you use your dashboard, for example, you can easily filter, okay, show me all car park lots with, less than 10 lots available, and so on. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to save this information into MongoDB. Okay, to do that, let's add a MongoDB writer. Okay, so what we do is when you add in a writer step, you are writing to a collection, similarly to how you would do the import. But note that the writer step is on an append basis, so the more times you run this writer step, the more records you will have, Right, so if you want it to be an override, I'll show you later. We have to add a delete. But right now, let's add in a HDB car park current. Okay, so we'll add, as mentioned, we need to delete previous records as an override. So we'll put a delete all once. Okay, and then we want to take the same collection. So to explain, right, the first step is to call chain A, right, which will give us the API reading. Then the second step, right, joins from chain B, which will give us all the relevant details. Okay, followed by MongoDB delete all, which deletes all currently nothing, right, from your collection before writing what you see over here into your MongoDB collection. So everything will be refreshed every time you run this. Okay, so even if I run this 100 times, right, it will only give me 2155 records, right? But if I disable this step in particular, then each time I run, it will add 2155 and add another 2155 every time I run it. Okay, so we want to keep this in, right? For the purpose of a GIS Explorer, typically you only want to keep one set of records, because GIS is more in line to show you a point in time data, right? You don't want to keep a whole list of records, because then each pin will be multiplied multiple times. Okay, so now that we are done with that, we will want to be able to, automatically pull the API. So what we can do is we can head over to the scheduler module. Okay, and over here in the triggers we can press add. Okay, and here we just give it a name. So let's say refresh car park current. Okay, remember in the trigger mode you can see that we can choose quite a few options. So run hourly is the lowest built-in interval we have, but if you want to do it on a per minute basis, just need to click control with cron expression, and then we can go to a cron expression generator like this. Okay, so we choose every minute, so we press generate, and then it'll give you a cron expression that you can use. Okay, so we'll click control, copy this, and then we paste it onto the cron expression, press validate. Okay, it works. Okay, now we want to select the chain set to refresh. Now remember that the data is only being captured in C join chains, so we will want to use it on C join chains. Okay, so once you've added it in, it'll tell you, okay, what's the next run, right? So 345, now it's 345, so next will be 346. So everything's according to plan, but let's give it a run first. Okay, so everything works.